Hare Krishna, Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Advaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Advaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Advaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. We continue reading from Caitanya Caritamrta Adi-Lila, Chapter 7. We are hearing the glories of the Panchatattva, and we are on text 25. Uccha Lila Prema Vanya Chodike Vedaya Stri Vrida Balaka Yuva Sabare Dubaya. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The flood of love of Godhead swelled in all directions, and thus young men, old men, women, and children were all immersed in that inundation. When the contents of the storehouse of love of Godhead is thus distributed, there is a powerful inundation that covers the entire land. So we have been hearing this past few days that Krishna, when he came, he did not freely give his love. Krishna does not give his love freely to anyone. He keeps it. He does not. Why? Because then he knows he becomes obliged to the devotee. So, but when Lord Chaitanya came with his associates, what did he do? Freely giving anyone, everyone, here, take love of Godhead. It's the most valuable treasure that we have and we can get. And so everyone was being flooded in all directions with this love of Godhead, inundation. You know, they say that when the pralaya will come, at the time where the partial dissolution, where the material world is going to be destroyed either partially or completely, it will be inundated with the devastating waters. So that is like a devastating scene. And here we are hearing that's inundated with the flood of love of Godhead. It means everyone is drowning in the love of Godhead, immersed in that inundation. But when we say drowning, it means that we are, going to die. But in this love of Godhead, in this flood of love of Godhead, everyone becomes more and more blissful and more joyful. The heart gets more and more, experiences more and more bliss. When the inundation that covers the entire land. In Sridhar Mayapur, there's sometimes a great flood after the rainy season. There is an indication that from the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya, the inundation of love of Godhead should be spread all over the world. But this will help everyone, including old men, young men, women, and children. So the Ganga, many times in the rainy season in Mayapur, the Ganga overflows. She overflows. She reaches up to the temple. Inside the temple, inside the temple she reaches. Sometimes almost reaching the altar also. So here Prabhupada is saying it indicates, because when Lord Chaitanya came, he flooded the entire land with love of God. So Prabhupada is saying this is an indication that everyone should be inundated in this love of God. The Krishna consciousness movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is so powerful that it can inundate the entire world and interest all classes of men in the subject of love of Godhead. So who's the founder of the Krishna consciousness movement? It's Lord Chaitanya himself. He's the one. He's the one who began this Krishna consciousness movement. And so Prabhupada is saying that it is so powerful that it can give love of Godhead to everyone. And we can see that's what's happening. It's practically happening, in very remote places. I had not even heard of these places before, but when you go there, very small place, not in India. In India, okay, we understand, everybody or many people would know, but in different parts of the world and very small places, over there you will suddenly meet a devotee and you're like, oh, wow, this is amazing. And the devotee is chanting Hare Krishna. We can see practically it's happening. It is happening. Sajjana Durjana Pangujara Andagana Prema Vanyaya Dubaila Jagate Rajana. The Krishna consciousness movement will inundate the entire world and drown everyone, whether one be a gentleman, a rogue, or even lame, invalid, or blind. Here again, it may be emphasized that although jealous rascals protest that Europeans and Americans cannot be given the sacred thread or sannyas, there is no need even to consider whether one is a gentleman or a rogue, because this is a spiritual movement which is not concerned with the external body of skin and bones, because it is being properly conducted under the guidance of the Panchatattva, strictly following the regulative principles. It has nothing to do with external impediments. So here, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he's saying that the Krishna consciousness movement will inundate the entire world and drown everyone. So Prabhupada is saying, because he was really criticized by a lot of people, that how you are giving Krishna consciousness to people who are outside India, people who are not Hindus, people who are not born in Brahmanical families. So he's saying the Krishna consciousness movement is beyond the body, because it is spiritual. We are not the body. We are all spirit souls. So, and he's saying because it is being conducted properly under the guidance of the Panchatattva, no one can stop it. It has nothing to do with the bodily designations. Jagad dubila jivera haila abhijanasha taha deki pancha janera parama ullasa. When the 5 members of the Panchatattva saw the entire world drowned in love of Godhead and the seed of material enjoyment in the living entities completely destroyed, they all became exceedingly happy. In this connection, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes in his Anubhasya that since the living entities all belong to the marginal potency of the Lord, each and every living entity has a natural tendency to become Krishna conscious, although at the same time, the seed of material enjoyment is undoubtedly within him. So we are all part and parcel of God. We are God's marginal potency, marginal energy. So we are all, we have this Krishna consciousness, natural tendency in each of us, but we also have the seed of material enjoyment. We have it. So the seed of material enjoyment, watered by the course of material nature, fructifies to become a tree of material entanglement that endows the living entity with all kinds of material enjoyment. To enjoy such material facilities is to be afflicted with the 3 material miseries. However, when by nature's law there is a flood, the seeds within the earth become inactive. Similarly, as the inundation of love of Godhead spreads all over the world, the seeds of material enjoyment become impotent. So we have the seed of material enjoyment in our heart, and that seed has now fructified and become into a big tree, and that's how we are entangled into this material world. It's we have become entangled in the material world. But when we inundate our heart, more we hear and chant, more we hear and chant, inundate our heart with the flood of the holy name, with Krishna Katha, what will happen? The seeds of the material enjoyment, they automatically will become inactive.
So
That's
like how beautiful, no? The same thing, what we read in Srimad Bhagavatam.
That's right. Yeah.
What a beautiful connection, like everything going parallel.
Yeah, everything complementing each other.
Yes.
Complemented. Thus, the more the Krishna consciousness movement spreads, the more the desire for material enjoyment decreases. The seed of material enjoyment automatically becomes important with the increase of the Krishna consciousness movement. So this can be said externally and internally. You know, the more we spread this Krishna consciousness movement, the more people, everyone will be benefited. Everyone, the material fever, the seed for material enjoyment will become impotent, will be destroyed, and the their Krishna consciousness will increase. Similarly, it acts for us. The more we inundate our heart with the holy name, with the glories of the Lord, then the material seeds in our heart will become impotent, and our Krishna consciousness will increase. So it acts both the ways, externally and internally. Instead of being envious that Krishna consciousness is spreading all over the world by the grace of Lord Chaitanya, those who are jealous should be happy, as indicated here by the words Param Ullas. But because they are Kanishta Adhikaris or Prakrita Bhaktas, materialistic devotees who are not advanced in spiritual knowledge, they are envious instead of happy. And they try to find faults in the Krishna consciousness movement. So Prabhupada is saying, because there were certain people who was like saying, oh, how you're getting these European Americans to become Krishna conscious, you know, how you're giving them Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada is saying, instead of being envious about it, they should be happy that the prediction of the Panchatattva is happening. The prediction of the Panchatattva, the desire of the Panchatattva is being carried out, that everyone in the world is chanting and, you know, experiencing this love of God. So yet Srimad Prabodhananda Saraswati writes in his Chaitanya Chandramrita that when influenced by Lord Chaitanya's Krishna consciousness movement, materialists become averse to talking about their wives and children. Supposedly learned scholars give up their tedious studies of Vedic literature. Yogis give up their impractical practices of mystic yoga. Ascetics give up their austere activities of penance and austerity. And sannyasis give up their study of Sankhya philosophy. Thus, they are all attracted by the Bhakti Yoga practices of Lord Chaitanya and cannot relish a mellow superior to that of Krishna consciousness. So Prabodhananda Saraswati, one of the great associates, one of the confidential associates of Lord Chaitanya, he has written that even what happens by this Krishna consciousness movement, what happens by Lord Chaitanya's Krishna consciousness movement, whoever we may be a materialist, we may be a scholar just trying to dryly study the Veda without understanding what's the true goal of it, or we may be someone who's impractically trying to practice the yogic procedure in this Kali Yuga, or we may be trying to do severe austerity and penances, or we may try to study dry philosophy, not the real Sankhya philosophy of devotional service, but just dry philosophy. What happens, whoever we may be, we can get so attracted by the Bhakti Yoga practice of Lord Chaitanya. And by engaging in that, then nothing else can satisfy the heart. Nothing else. No amount of dry philosophy, no amount of impractical mystic yoga practice, no amount of material enjoyment, no amount of dry Vedic study can give that bliss to the heart, you know, relish a mellow. Because by the bhakti process, it's only by bhakti that the heart can become soft. Only by bhakti, by engaging in austerities, by engaging in dry philosophy, the heart becomes very hard. It becomes very hard. And then what happens, that hard heart keeps us still in the material world. It's only when our heart is softened by engaging in devotional service that Krishna gets attracted to that soft heart. So we just need to inundate our heart, flood the heart with the holy names and with the hearing about the Lord. Is that okay?
Yes.
Did you want to add anything?
No, I was just remembering Parikshit Maharaj, like how he was also the one who was a great devotee already. He himself was a great devotee, and how he got liberation just by hearing and chanting. So how like just by hearing, not chanting, sorry, just by hearing. He was Shravanam, right? So
Shravanam.
yeah.
He
So
went back to Godhead, yes.
yeah.
And he was situated in his original position. His
yes.
original position, you know. Brihad Bhagavatamrita that mentions how Parikshit Maharaj, because Bhagavatam stops that Parikshit Maharaj leaves his body, but it doesn't speak further about him. But Bhagavatamrita speaks about him then, how he attains his Swarup, his original position, you know, by hearing. So as you rightly said, you know, that how one can attain perfection, how, if we follow in the footsteps of Parikshit Maharaj. Very nice. Thank you. Thank you. So we'll stop here for today. Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.